I'm here with Donald Jellerson in the Hamilton Room at the University Center, the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. Today is November 2nd, and today I wanted to talk to him about films and basically where I wanted to start off. I basically told him that my love for film came from my love of Stanley Kubrick. Ever since I saw The Shining when I was way too young to see it, I knew he was one of my favorite directors, and I was reaffirmed that when I saw movies like Clockwork Orange, 2001, A Space Odyssey, and Full Metal Jacket. And so I'm with him today, and I wanted to know, Donald, what is your story? What drove you to pursue film studies, and do you have a favorite director? Why are they, if you have one, why are they your favorite director? And I guess, what was the specific moment you knew that you wanted to pursue film studies?
Sure. I actually came to it rather late when in my PhD years. I hadn't even thought about it. I was going to be a literature PhD, and I was studying Shakespeare. So in the course of studying Shakespeare, however, because most of the way we receive Shakespeare is in the movies, right? Unless you're lucky enough to go to see an actual play, it's mostly either reading the text, rather than going to see a live performance, you mostly read the text and you see films of Shakespeare. So I first got into studying film when I was studying literature, and then I got into studying Shakespeare, and then I saw a few particular films. A lot of Shakespeare films are kind of boring, but
Yeah.
but there's one in particular that just like blew my mind. It's based on the Shakespeare play Titus Andronicus, and the film is called Titus.
Yeah.
Which is just like astonishing. It was a kind of updated, postmodern version of a Shakespeare play, and but directed by Julie Taymor. And I just was like, wow, this is the capacity of movies to just like go way beyond what you can do in a stage play. To just like take that into the new dimensions. So from that point, I started studying during my PhD program. I started taking actual film courses, and I had never thought, I was older, so I had never thought film studies would be a thing for me. It just had never occurred to me before that point.
Yeah.
But when I started to study film and started to study what the directors, I'm also a Kubrick fan, by the way, but directors like Kubrick, Hitchcock, and there was one director in particular that I studied in my PhD years. He's not a really well known, except in the kind of mid-century area, but his name is Max Ophuls. And it was leading up to World War II, and he happened to be Jewish, so he started in Germany, but had to fled to Italy. He did films in Italy, then went to France and did films in French, and then he came to Hollywood and he did films in English in America, and then he went back to France and did films there. So I thought that was fascinating, and he was very, very good. He's the kind of director that other directors go, oh yeah, that guy was good. It's like, and so I started to figure out, modern directors like, I don't know, Paul Thomas Anderson or something, look back at Max Ophuls and say, that's the guy who like really set the standard, or his people like Hitchcock and Ophuls. So I just was bowled over by those movies, and ever since then I've been hybrid, studying both, literature and film, always kind of switching back and forth between those. So I still teach Shakespeare, but I also teach a lot of film courses, because it's really kind of a passion project for me now. Does that?
Yeah, I was just also gonna wonder. So you mentioned a lot of Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen Richard III? I'm sure you have. I've always wanted to like either read the play or see, because I know there's a movie. Mm-hmm. And I guess is that one of your favorite Shakespeare stories? It's
an amazing Shakespeare play. There's a film version with Ian McKellen as Richard III, which is really good and fascinating. But yeah, it's a great play. It's a little bit harder to get into because it's one of the histories. You know, they have all the histories, and Shakespeare has Henry V and Henry IV and Henry VI and Richard III and Richard II.
Yeah.
So there's all these Henrys and Richards, right? So,
Yeah.
and there are dozens, a lot of different films of those. But that one's a good one, and I do like Richard III.
I was also thinking too, when you were talking about like more like foreign directors. What are your thoughts on Akira Kurosawa? He made films. I think it was called Seven Samurai. That's like regarded as like one of the greatest movies of all time. I don't know if you've heard of like the Criterion films or like but yeah, those are like my kind of movies where like they're regarded as like some of the greatest films of all time. And I guess what are your thoughts on that director?
He's amazing. He was a trendsetter just, you know, after even before World War II, but yeah, he was amazing. And really, Seven Samurai is such a classic, and just as a piece of artistry, visual artistry, it's really, for its time, was just totally groundbreaking. So I'm a big fan. Other Asian directors like Chan-wook Park from Korea or Wong Kar-wai from Hong Kong. It's a really rich field of filmmaking over there in different Asian countries at the moment.
Another thing too, I love Paul Thomas Anderson as well. Do you think, so there's Wes Anderson too, which one do you think one is better than the other? Because personally, I like Paul Thomas Anderson more than Wes Anderson. I think Wes Anderson's great, but I really like Paul Thomas Anderson with like Boogie Nights and there's a couple more that I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think
There Will Be Blood.
There Will Be Blood. There's the one with Joaquin Phoenix.
He did Inherent Vice and a couple others. Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah. There's one I'm trying to think of. It was where it's like raining frogs from the sky.
Oh, Magnolia.
Magnolia. Yeah. I just saw that this last year, and I really like that movie too.
Yeah, I think they're both really great directors, but they're so different. It's kind of like apples and oranges.
Yeah.
So they're, you know, it's for me, it's a mood. Mostly, I'm kind of with you. I think I appreciate Paul Thomas Anderson almost any time.
Yeah.
Wes Anderson, you kind of got to be in a kind of artsy mood for.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am with that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that there are a bunch of great directors. I definitely want to check out the director you were talking about. So how many movies did he make? I'm guessing with all those, because he said he went back to France, he was in America. How many did he make? What was his name again? Sorry.
Max Ophuls, Ophuls, Ophuls.
Do you know how many movies he probably made?
He didn't make a ton. He maybe, it's under a dozen, certainly. It's probably about 8 or 10. I don't remember offhand exactly what the number is. He did 3 in the U.S. Letter from an Unknown Woman is maybe one of his classics. He also had a classic called Lola Montes, and one he did that was in French. Letter from an Unknown Woman is English. In English, he did a film called Caught in English, and also The Earrings of Madame de, which is in French as well. So those are some of my favorites of his.
I'm definitely gonna have to check those out. Another great director I just want to shout out is Federico Fellini.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite Italian directors. Are you into Italian?
Yeah, particularly Fellini.
Yeah.
So 8.5
Yes.
and La Dolce Vita are 2 of my favorite movies. Yeah.
I saw 8.5 over the summer. I still want to see La Dolce Vita though, because it looks amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I think that pretty much wraps everything up. Is there anything else that you just wanted to add about what makes you love and appreciate movies? I guess just films in general. If there's any other thing you wanted to say about that you love about it? And one of the things for me with Kubrick was I mentioned like the timelessness of his films. You could kind of like go back, and it has like a different feel every time you rewatch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to know, is there something that in particular that...
Tammy, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry, Donald. I just want to interrupt you with a quick question. Is a student able to take English 102 and World of Vitality?
Apologize for the interruption there. So basically what we're asking Donald is... So about any last words on his love and appreciation for films. As I was saying, my thing with Stanley Kubrick is I can appreciate the timelessness in his movies and how there's a different feel every time I watch it. It's the same movie, but there's always a different kind of like feeling to it. And so any last thoughts on that, Donald?
I think in terms of what I love about studying movies is that there are just new worlds opening all the time. So when I first sort of fell in love with Chan-wook Park from South Korea, it wasn't on my radar, like South Korean film. Yeah. But he did The Handmaiden and Old Boy, and they were just beautiful movies, right? So I was like, wow. So I'm always surprised. Or the other one that I'm thinking about now is Alfonso Cuarón's Roma, which takes place in Mexico City. And it's in Spanish and Esperanto, and it's just like opening up a whole new world for me, right? And not only in terms of craft of cinema, but just the cultural scene. So you can sort of a globe hop, right, with your study of film, and that's always interesting, always surprising to see people doing such beautiful craftsman-like work, but in such different kinds of contexts and with such a different set of values. So that's what I love about it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you for taking your time for me to interview you. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.